Hello, everybody. I hope you had a good day today, but since it's nighttime, it's time to get into our beds, get our little sleeping buddy, its little foot, and go to bed. But before we do that, I think it's time I read you a little bit. My book's a little ruined. I do have another one that's not ruined, but I think it's hiding in the closet somewhere. I'll find it later on. So for tonight, I think we shall be reading Peter Pan. See the little Tinkerbell right there? Tinkerbell and Peter. Alright, let's see what we got. Peter Pan chose to visit the Darling house because there were people there who believed in him. Miss Darling believed Peter Pan was the spirit of youth. The boys, John and Michael, believed Peter Pan was a real person. They made him the hero of all their games. As for Wendy, their older sister, she was the supreme authority of Peter Pan. She knew everything about him. Even Nana, the nursemaid, believed in Peter. Although being a dog, she kept her opinion of him to herself. Mr. Darling was the only one who didn't believe. Absolute poppycock, he blurted when anyone mentioned Peter Pan. For Mr. Darling, he was the last straw when he discovered the boys had drawn a pirate map on his last clean shirt front and hidden his cufflinks. The boys explained that they had been playing Peter Pan and Captain Hook, and the cufflinks were the buried treasure. But Mr. Darling didn't want to hear a word about it. As far as he was concerned, it was all Wendy's fault. Stuff the boys with a lot of silly stories, he said. So he decreed that it was time Wendy had a room of her own. I mean it, young lady. This is your last night in the nursery, he ordered to everyone's dismay. And since he still had a full head of steam going, he fired the dog from her job as nursemaid too, and tied her outside. Wendy was troubled by her father's outbursts, especially the part when he had told her she was going to have to grow up. But I don't want to grow up, she told her mother. Don't worry about it anymore tonight, her mother said. John and Michael were upset too about Nana, Peter Pan, and losing Wendy from the nursery. Don't judge your father too harshly, Miss Darling told the children as she kissed them goodnight. He really loves you very much. Moments after Mr. and Mrs. left for the theater, Peter Pan hopped through the nursery window. Right behind him was Tinkerbell, although you wouldn't have known it unless you looked very closely, because at the moment she appeared only as a golden glow. They had come for Peter Pan's shadow. Peter had become separated from it in his last visit to the Darling house, and Nana had gotten a hold of him. Must be here somewhere, Peter said, looking around the nursery. After some searching, he found it in the drawer where Wendy had put it after she had found Nana chewing on it. The shadow didn't want to be caught. It flew out of the drawer and made Peter chase all around the room, thumping into things. The noise woke up Wendy. I knew you'd come back, she cried to Peter. Wendy knew just what to do with the reluctant shadow. She'd sew it back on. So she had got out her sewing kit. Meanwhile, Peter explained how Nana had grabbed into his shadow while he was lurking out on the window ledge, listening to Wendy's stories. My stories? But they're all about you, Wendy cried. Of course, that's why I like them, Peter said. Wendy wasn't too happy to tell Peter the news that there would be no more stories. I have to grow up tomorrow. Tonight's my last night in the nursery, she explained. I won't have it, Peter cried. Come on, we're going to Neverland. You'll never grow up there. It only took a minute to wake up John and Michael. And another few minutes for the Darling children to learn how to fly. It was quite easy to do, really. As long as you had a bit of Tinkerbell's pixie dust, then they were on their way to Neverland. The island of Neverland is an extremely long distance from the city of London, or any other city for that matter. But because of the pixie dust, it was no time at all before the Darling children spotted it in the sea below. Oh, Peter, it's just as I've always dreamed it would be, Wendy cried. From Wendy's stories, the children already knew that Neverland was home to Peter and his lost boys, as well as an Indian tribe and a number of mermaids. They also knew that Peter's mortal enemy, Captain Hook, kept his pirate ship anchored in the harbor. And there it was, down below. None of the darling children was prepared for the welcome they received from the pirates. "Look out!" Peter cried, as the cannonball came hurtling towards them from the ship's deck. Luckily, the darling children had already flown quickly out of the way. "Quick, Tink! Take Wendy and the boys to the island," Peter shouted. I'll stay here and draw Hook's fire." Captain Hook and Peter had been enemies practically forever. As far as the pirates were concerned, Peter was the cause of all his misfortunes. He even blamed Peter for the fact that a crocodile followed him continually. The crocodile had swallowed Hook's left hand a few years earlier and had been waiting for another taste of him ever since. Fortunately, the crocodile had also swallowed an alarm clock. The tick-tock of the clock warned Hook whenever the crocodile was around. Still, Hook was scared less each time he saw it. He relied on the pirate Smee to keep the crocodile as far away from him as possible. Hook had vowed to find Peter Pan's hideout so he could get even. He had sent his pirates to search Mermaid's Lagoon, Cannibal Cove, and everywhere else he had been able to think of. But now the pirates were fed up. They wanted to get back to buccaneering. But Hook couldn't stop poring over the map, desperately searching for Peter Pan. "I've got it!" he cried, pointing at the Indian encampment. "Tiger Lily! The chief's daughter. She'll know where Peter Pan is hiding." But before Hook could arrange to kidnap Tiger Lily, Peter and the darling children flew into view, and Hook had ordered his pirates to fire the cannons at them. Uh-oh. Tinkerbell flew down towards Neverland, dodging cannonballs. Wendy and the boys followed far behind. "Wait! We can't keep up!" Wendy cried, but Tinkerbell thought Peter was paying far too much attention to Wendy, so she flew ahead and told the lost boys to shoot Wendy down. Fortunately, Wendy was not hurt, but Peter was furious when he found out what had happened. "You blockheads," he said. "I bring you a mother to tell you stories, and you shoot her down?" Since Tinkerbell was behind the plot, he charged her with high treason and banished her for a week. Oh, Tinkerbell. Later, John and Michael said they would like to see some Indians. "All right," Peter agreed. "John, you be the leader." So John led an expedition of lost boys through the jungle. Almost at once, they found some Indians, and the next thing they knew, they were tied to a totem pole. John and Michael were worried, but the lost boys weren't. "It was a game," they explained. "When we win, we turn them loose. When they win, they turn us loose." But this time, the chief wouldn't let them go. He thought the lost boys were the ones that kidnapped Tiger Lily, and if she wasn't back by sunset, the boys would be burned at the stake. Meanwhile, Peter had taken Wendy to meet some mermaids, but the mermaids ignored Wendy completely. Instead, they flirted with Peter and begged him to tell them one of his adventures. Peter started to recount the time he had been surrounded by 50 pirates when Wendy lost patience. "Oh, Peter," she interrupted. "Who's she?" one of the mermaids asked. "What's she doing here?" said another. "And in her nightdress, too," a third remarked rudely, splashing water on Wendy's nightie. Other mermaids tried to pull Wendy into the water. She just about to smack one of them when Peter stopped her. "They're just having a little fun. Weren't you, girls?" he said. "That's all. We were only trying to drown her," one of the mermaids said. "Well, if you think for 1 minute," Wendy started to say, but Peter put his hand over her mouth. He had just noticed Captain Hook and Smee rowing into the distance towards Skull Rock, and they had Tiger Lily with them. Quickly, Peter and Wendy flew off to get a closer look. Captain Hook had a proposal for Tiger Lily, whom he had tied into place where she would soon be covered by the rising tide. "You tell me the hiding place of Peter Pan, and I shall set you free," Hook said. Tiger Lily was silent. "You better talk, my dear," Hook urged. for soon the tide will be in, and then it will be too late. Stay here, Wendy, and watch the fun, Peter said, leaving her high on the cliff, out of danger. He flew behind a rock and lured Hook away from Tiger Lily by imitating the voice of a water spirit. Beware, Captain Hook, beware, Peter intoned. But Hook was not fooled for long. Come down, boy, if you've a taste for cold steel, he shouted. In response, Peter flew down on the captain and did a little dance on the end of Hook's sword. This was too much for Hook. He sprang into action. In the sword fight that followed, Peter managed to back Hook off the edge of a cliff. The crocodile was waiting below, its jaws gaping. Hook almost ran on top of the water in his effort to reach me in the boat. Peter and Wendy rescued Tiger Lily and took her back to the Indian camp. The chief released the lost boys and declared in sign language that Peter was a mighty warrior for rescuing Tiger Lily. As a reward, he gave Peter an Indian headdress and a new title, Little Flying Eagle. Afterwards, John was permitted to ask his full questions about Indian lore. Meanwhile, Smee had managed to pry Hook loose from the jaws of the crocodile and rowed him back to the ship with the crocodile snapping behind them all the way. The terrible ordeal had exhausted Hook. He was seriously considering giving up on getting even with Peter Pan. He would go back to his normal life, scuttling ships and cutting throats. But then Smee told him about the rumor that was going around. Tinkerbell was jealous of Wendy. She had tried to kill Wendy, and Peter Pan had ended up banishing the little pixie. That's it, Smee, that's it! Hook shouted quickly. He dispatched Smee to find Tinkerbell. Smee found her sitting dejectedly on a branch. He scooped her into his cap. Begging your pardon, Miss Bell, he said, but Captain Hook would like a word with you. Hook was devious. He told Tinkerbell that he admitted defeat and was leaving the island for good. He wanted Peter to know that he bore him no ill will, and although he did think bringing Wendy to the island had been a mistake, rumor has it that already she has become between you and Peter, Hook said slyly. Tinkerbell burst into tears, and Hook pretended to be sympathetic. Then, as if he had just thought of the idea, he offered a solution to her problem. We'll Shanghai Wendy, he said. Now, if only we knew where Peter lived. Tinkerbell agreed to show the location on the map if he promised not to lay a finger or a hook on Peter Pan. Captain Hook gave her his word, and Tinkerbell traced the path to Peter's hideout on the map. Hook thanked Tinkerbell, then trapped her inside the lantern. No, Tinkerbell's in trouble. Meanwhile, Wendy and the boys had returned to Peter's hideout. Michael, take off that war paint and get ready for bed, Wendy said. We're going home in the morning. Aw, Wendy, we don't want to go home, Michael whined. Let's stop pretending and be practical, Wendy said. You need a mother. We all do. And the boys seemed to have forgotten what a mother was. Wendy had to remind them. A mother is the most wonderful person in the world, she began. By the time she had finished, John and Michael longed to go home. Even the lost boys, who had not seen their mothers in a very long time, felt sad and wanted to go home too. So they all decided to leave Neverland that very night. Peter was the only one who wanted to stay in Neverland. Go back and grow up, he told the others, but I'm warning you, once you're grown up, you can never come back. As the boys marched out the door, Wendy stayed behind for a moment. She wanted to say goodbye to Peter, but he just turned his back on her. As soon as Wendy stepped out of the tree, she saw that her brothers and the lost boys had been captured by pirates. She had no time to react and was carried away. And now, Smee, to take care of Master Peter Pan, Hook said as he placed a gift-wrapped box in front of Peter's door. Then he rang the bell. Wouldn't it be more human-like to slit his throat, Smee said. But Hook had given his word to Tinker Bell not to lay a finger on Peter Pan, or Hook for that matter. And Captain Hook never breaks a promise, he said. Back on the ship, Captain Hook gave the boys a simple choice. They could sign on as members of the pirate gang, or they could walk the plank. The boys were all about to sign when Wendy stopped them. Peter Pan will save us, she said. I don't believe you're in our little joke, Hook said. Or sort of little surprise package, you might say. The package she had left at Peter's door contained a bomb, Hook explained, as it was set to go off within the next few seconds. Tinker Bell overheard the conversation. She struggled desperately and finally overturned the lantern, shattering the glass. Quickly, she flew off to warn Peter. Peter had found the package and read the note on it. To Peter, with love from Wendy. Do not open till 6 o'clock. The clock on the wall on his underground home said 12 seconds to 6, but Peter couldn't wait any longer. He was untying the ribbon when Tinker Bell flew in. Hi, Tink. Look what Wendy left, Peter said. The pixie tugged at the package, trying to get it away from him. Hey, stop that. What's the matter with you? Peter cried. Tinker Bell jingled fiercely. Hook, a bomb? Don't be ridiculous, Peter said. Then he noticed the smoke coming up from the package. Kaboom! The force of the explosion rocked the ship in the harbor. Hook removed his hat and bowed his head for a moment. So what path is a worthy opponent, he said. Then he turned to Winnie. Which will it be, the pin or the plank? We will never join your crew, Wendy replied. As you wish, said Hook. Ladies first, my dear. Wendy said, Goodbye, boys. And as she walked off the edge of the plank, the pirates waited to hear the splash Wendy would make as she hit the water. It never came. A pirate looked over the side. Not a blooming ripple, he said. It's a jinx, that's what it is. It wasn't a jinx. It was Peter Pan. He had arrived just in time to save Wendy. They listened to the pirates' conversation from the perch on the anchor chain. Then Peter flew Wendy out to the safety of the crow's nest and turned towards the pirates. He had business to conclude with Captain Hook. Meanwhile, Captain Hook was yelling at the pirates. You want a splash? He asked his worried shipmates. I'll give you a splash. Who's next? You're next, Hook, Peter said. Say your prayers. Hook was furious that Peter had escaped the bomb. He lunged at Peter with his sword, but Peter darted and dodged so quickly that the captain got his hook stuck in a mast. While he struggled free, Peter had time to untie all the boys. They joined the battle. Down, you blackguard! John yelled, whacking a pirate with his umbrella. Peter Pan and Hook fought along the mast. Every time Hook got close, Peter would fly away. You wouldn't dare fight old Hook man to man, the captain taunted. You'd fly away like a cowardly sparrow. Peter hated being called a coward. He gave his word he would fight without flying. No, Peter, it's a trick, Wendy shouted. Peter ignored Wendy's warning and fought on. Hook backed him to the end of a yard arm, and Peter nearly fell off. Wendy couldn't stand to watch. She covered her eyes. Below, the crocodile waited patiently. Then Peter grabbed the skull and the crossbone flag and tingled Hook in it. Now the pirate was at his mercy. Kill him, the boy shouted. Hook groveled. I'll go away forever. I'll do anything you say. All right, Peter said. If you say you're a codfish. I'm a codfish, Hook said. So Peter told Hook he was free to go. Then, as soon as Peter turned his back, Hook raised his arm to strike him with a hook. He missed and lost his balance. The crocodile was waiting for him. Hooray for Captain Pan! The lost boy shouted. Peter strutted across the deck like a captain. All right, you swabs, he said. We're casting off. Heave those halyards. The boy scrambled back into the rigging. But Peter, Wendy said. Oh, that is Captain Pan, she stuttered. Could you tell me, sir, where we're sailing? To London, madam, Peter replied. Michael, John, we're going home, Wendy cried joyfully. While the lost boys raced to anchor, Peter called to Tinker Bell. Pixie dust, he ordered. Tinker Bell saluted and sprinkled pixie dust over the deck and rails. The pirate ship began to glow. Then it rose slowly from the water until Neverland was far below. When Mr. and Miss Darling got home, they were puzzled to find Wendy asleep on the window seat. Oh, Mother, we're back, she said when they wakened her. All except the lost boys. They weren't quite ready to grow up. That's why they went back to Neverland. But I am, she blurted out. Her parents were completely confused. Am? Her father said. Ready to grow up, Wendy explained. She told them all about Tinker Bell and the mermaids and being saved by Peter Pan and calling Captain Hook a codfish, until Mr. Darling concluded that perhaps she wasn't ready to grow up after all. Perhaps we were a bit hasty, he said, as he turned to leave the room. I'm going to bed. He really is wonderful, isn't he? Wendy said as she looked out the window. See how well he sails the ship? Miss Darling glanced into the direction of Wendy's gaze. Then she called for her husband to take a look. Mr. Darling stared at the ship for quite a long time. Finally, he said, You know, I have the strangest feeling that I've seen that ship before. A long time ago, when I was very young. And there's the ship. Alright. Now you guys get some rest. So we can have a fun day tomorrow. Okay? Good night.